and welcome to the Property Unleashed with me, Mark Fitzgerald. It's fantastic to have you joining me here today. So as you can see, today I am joined by a special guest and a good friend, Luke Rowlands. How are you doing, my friend? Good to have you on.
I'm doing very well, Mark. Thanks for having me.
No, always a pleasure, always a pleasure. Now, myself and Luke, we met through property training. We did the mastermind program together as well. So we've got to know each other quite well. We were always the last people at the bar, which is where the best property conversations happen and everything. But for the listeners and everything like that, Luke, can you just tell us a bit about yourself and your sort of journey into the property world?
Yeah, sure. So my name's Luke Rowlands. I'm an investor and developer, previously a builder based down in South Wales. I only invest in South Wales. I've been investing in property now for over 6 years, but my background is in construction. So I've been in that industry now for over 10 years. I've stepped off the tools. I've been off the tools now for just over 2 years, which has been absolutely fantastic. It's always been a big goal of mine. So property has been my vehicle to be able to do that. But having the construction background that I have has been a huge help for me on my investing journey. So yeah, strangely enough, I left school in 2012, and for some weird and wonderful reason, I decided I wanted to be a plasterer. Still to this day, I don't know why. I never enjoyed it. I don't have a reason why I wanted to do that. But that only lasted for 1 year. Although it was a 3-year-long course, I couldn't go back for level 2 or 3 because I couldn't find an apprenticeship at the time. So this is where I had to find an alternative. So I come across this government construction scheme where basically I was someone's labourer, pretty much just going back and forth the van, doing as they say. But what I believe is when you're in the construction industry, you got to start from the rock bottom, work your way up, and then to progress to do bigger and better things. So yes, when I went on the construction government scheme, I was on placement for a year. After the year, my boss then took me on full time, which was great. So I then worked for him for about 4 or 5 years. But all of our customers were property investors and developers. So a lot of our projects were refurbishments on HMOs, flat conversions. So gradually over the years, that got me very interested in property. So luckily, at the time, it was about 5 years ago now, I had a little bit of inheritance, which got me started in property. So then my previous boss became then a business partner of mine. So we've now been in business for over 6 years. We've built a successful portfolio. So we've got our HMOs, we've built a portfolio of HMOs, which has now allowed us to step off the tools to do bigger developments. So to do more profit rather than cash flow. So we've got a profit, now we're focusing, no, we've got a cash flow, sorry. Now we're focusing on getting our profit by doing commercial to residential conversions.
Wow, excellent. I mean, just going back to the plasterer, why does anybody want to be a plasterer? It's normally money. But no, thank you for that. I mean, that's really, really good. And it's quite modest in the way that you've done things. You have started at the bottom, you've worked through your way through the tools, you've learned the trades. I know when I first met you, you were doing a bit of everything, whether you liked it or not at the end of the day, but it came in handy, I think, for yourself as well. But looking at some of the projects as well that you've been doing, your commercial to residential, I mean, the last one I saw was massive. It was a bit of a beast, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's quite a big project, that one, to the point where we had to split it in 3 phases because the nature of the build, it just makes sense because it just would have been too complicated to do it all at once. So what we've done, it's so split into 3 phases. Phase 1 was in old doctor surgery, which has now been converted into 3 houses. That's done and sold. People are living in them. They've been living in them for now the past year. Phase 2, we recently completed. That's a previous factory and office block that's now been converted into 8 flats, and people will be moving into them very shortly. And we're just going through the planning stages now of phase 3, which was previously a boxing gym. That's now been demolished, and we're looking to achieve a few new builds on them. So we're hoping to start that around summertime. So now up until then, it's just I'm using a little bit of downtime to kind of recharge, then get back into it, because when I was spending my time on this development, I had a very hands-on role. So I decided to take the role of being a site manager, which in theory I didn't have to do. There was still enough profit in it to get in a project manager, but this is something I wanted to do. If I was working full time for other customers, I wouldn't have had the time to do this. But now I do have the time. I can go and do such role, which has been great. It's been very tough and stressful. Don't get me wrong, but it's been enjoyable at the same time. Being my background, it just made sense for me to do that approach, and I suppose manage the trades individually. So yeah, it's been a very interesting project. This is based in the Caerphilly area of South Wales. And yeah, if you want to know more about this project, do feel free to follow me on social media, where I have done some posts in the past, and I have planned to do more posts going forward about this development.
Oh, we should do as well. I mean, what is it, like a 4-year plan on this one?
Yeah, so it's been quite a long one, this. So we're actually 3 years in at the moment, not on the build. Um, it's 3 years since we negotiated the project up until the current build we're on now. So realistically, it is a 4-year-long project. But the issues we had with this development, as soon as we started the build, COVID happened. So as soon as COVID hit us, everything just slowed down completely. For example, phase one, what should have took 5 months actually took us 12 months. And then that kind of factored into phase two then, which the build did take a little longer. So it was tough times, but we managed to get the build done. So yes, overall, it will be a 4-year-long project.
And also, of course, it's taken on a massive project like this, and then COVID hits, and of course, then materials costs, doubles,
Mhm.
triples in some things. Have you managed to, keep it going? Have you managed to keep it to budget? Or did you have plenty of fat in the way that you structured it? How have you managed to keep it going?
Yeah, so it was very tricky. We did go slightly over budget. There was nothing we could do about that, but
Mm.
the way we avoided by doing that, because we were splitting the development into phases, what we done, we stored all pretty much, I would say 80% of the materials in the building of phase two. So rather than buying materials on a weekly basis, we bought it plenty of time enough for the development to finish the build. So basically we bulk buyed all the materials, which did save us quite a lot of money. So, for example, the amount of insulation we needed on this development, I think on phase two, worked out to be about £30,000 worth of insulation. By bulk buying everything at once, we managed to drop that down to 18,000. So you can
Ooh.
see quite a large saving there. So because we had enough space to store it, that's why we done that. Now, on some cases, some developments, you don't have the space, so it can be very tricky. I don't really recommend you store materials outside, because
Mm.
unfortunately with developments, they are common to get break-ins. We got, I suppose, very lucky. We only had two issues. So once was just kids using it as a playground. So that was something we had to resolve. So we had to put extra security in to stop them from breaking in and just being a bit of a nightmare. And we did then have one break-in where they didn't take anything, but they attempted a break-in. So whilst the demolition was going on, we had lots of plant work, big machinery, and there was a fuel tank on site. So whoever's seen that decided to break in. They tried to take the fuel, but because of the machinery, the arm of the digger was up against the tank, it stopped them from opening it. So that's really the only issue we had. So I would say we got very lucky. I actually met a guy the other day who actually he's on his third break-in so far, and yeah, they've taken quite a lot of materials although they've got storage containers outside, if people want to get in somewhere, they will find a way to get in. So you've got to do everything you can to make sure the security on your site is up to spec. For example, getting all cameras in. My cameras were motion censored, so any little movement, it will notify me straight away. And just make sure you got, good fencing, Harris fencing or hoarding, just to make your site safe, because these things do happen, unfortunately. And the best thing you could do is just make it as safe as you can. So yeah, going back to the materials, the trick to saving is pretty much bulk buy. Yes, COVID, it was tricky. Prices were going up monthly, but they are gradually starting to go down a little bit now, especially timber. But we don't use timber on our development. We use metal stud which saved quite a bit, not just on cost, but on time as well.
Brilliant, brilliant. And great tips as well. Thank you for that. It's what a lot of people don't think about is obviously the nuisances that you have with the break-ins. And I know a friend who's done a lot of pub conversions, and the amount of break-ins that they've had with people just coming in, trying to nick the pipe in, trying to nick any of the supplies that end up there is something that you have to factor in this day and age now. Now, one of the good things is, cameras and things like that are relatively decent price now, aren't they? Your motion sensor cameras aren't going to cost you an arm and a leg to have, depending on the size of your site. Now, I know your site's really, really big, so you could store things and stuff, but no, it's good. It's really great to see. So what I want to do is just take you back ever so slightly. Obviously, you did your plastering, then you went and you became an apprentice and everything. But at what point, obviously, you got your inheritance, you got a property under your belt and stuff like that. But at what point did you think to yourself, do you know what, there's probably more to this property malarkeys than just being on the tools, that just, working for other people? Where was the mindset at for you when that sort of light bulb moment, if you like?
Yeah. So interestingly, I used to attend Cardiff Pin. I would say my first ever meeting was around 6 years ago. So I never used to attend Cardiff Pin for property. I used to go there specifically for building work. So obviously, being the builder in a room full of property investors and developers, it was a great opportunity for me to get plenty of business. Now, the first couple of meetings, I didn't get a lot of work. It was mainly small bits and bobs. But then gradually over the months, we worked out, I'll say gradually over the months, about a year later of attending PIN meetings, about 90% of my customers were all investors, developers from a PIN meeting. So then after refurbishing quite a few HMOs for this one specific customer, we was asking them plenty of questions about how they acquired it, what's their plans with it, what kind of cash flow will they achieve. And it got me very interested. And I realized if they can find properties like these that need a big refurb, all I need to know is how they done that. So as I was spending a lot of time with them on the refurbs, they gave me, I suppose, a lot of coaching. So it got me very interested. I really wanted to do that. And then they gave me this idea of where I could find funds to buy my first investment. So I was very fortunate at the time. I had a property inherited to me. Now this property had no mortgage on it. So this is my home now. So I moved into this home, which was previously my grandmother's. I then remortgaged the home in my own name, which allowed me to pull out the equity in the home to buy my first investment. But I bought this first investment, which was an auction purchase, by pretty much no education. So by the time I finished this deal, I realized I needed some education. So if I could go back, was it 5 years ago now, I would have paid for education first, then done some property deals rather than buying the property first, then do it vice versa. So yes, after buying my first purchase, which was a 3-bedroom property in Port Talbot, this at the time had a guide price of 18,000. So you can imagine how much interest this property had. Strangely enough, it didn't have much interest, and I now know why. So we managed secure this property for 34,000, which still is a very, very cheap property. But the area we bought this property in is a very rundown, and it's got quite a bad name for itself. So it's not your typical high-end tenant. It's more for, I suppose, kind of the lower end. But at the time, we didn't really do much research. I had a little cash pot, which I wanted to spend. So we decided to go to auction and purchase this property. So we kind of just dived into it without doing any research or having education, which I do not recommend to anyone. But we got very lucky. It actually turned out to be a very, very good investment for us, and we still have this property to this day. So yeah, just to run through some figures on this. So yeah, we managed to purchase it for 34,000. We spent 6,000 on the refurb, which at the time I pretty much done all the work myself. We spent about £2,000 on fees. So all in, it was £42,000. It was then valued at 80,000. So by the time we refinanced this property, we pulled out all our cash, plus we pulled out an extra £14,000 tax-free profit. So obviously, you know, that money going forwards, I put some of it in some of investments, but the rest of it, I decided to invest in, not just invest in education, but invest in myself as well. Because going back 6 years ago, I used to be a very, very shy person, to the point where I was just too nervous to speak to anyone in business, because I just always thought they kind of looked down on me, especially being my age as well. So I started business at 21, and it was very tough. It was very tough. I looked very young at the time, so people didn't really take me serious. So I know I needed to invest in myself first, and then start progressively investing into properties. So yes, that's where I decided to sign for Mastermind. So it was a 12-month mastermind course with PIN. And going back, it was probably the best 12 months of my life, and I don't regret any of it. Of course, that's where we met as well. We spent plenty of time together in the bar. So we do know each other very well. So yeah, it was great doing that. And if it wasn't for the mastermind, I wouldn't have achieved what I've achieved today.
No, that's great. Great journey. And everybody has their journey. Everybody has their reasons for doing it. And you still look young, mate. You still look young. But you know, I'm always in awe, and I'll say the same thing. And I hope my boys do, you know, find their own sort of feet, find their own vision at a younger age, and certainly I did. Because as people know, I was very much in my own way. I wasn't open to training. I wasn't open to investing in myself. So doing that at a younger age, like you've done, you've really set yourself up to live the life that you want to live, haven't you? And I know for a fact now, you know, you've gone from the tools, you know, you want to be taken seriously, which you are. You're doing some great projects now. You've got more control over what you do and what you don't do in your own operations, so to speak. And of course, you are building your own property development businesses, and also, you know, helping others as well, which is always superb. So just touch on that, because you're now, well, you've been doing it a while. You're a co-host for the Cardiff Pin. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, I've been co-hosting Cardiff Pin now for just over 2 years. So I co-host alongside Morgan Stewart, and it's been great going forwards, and I continue to hosting going forward. It's been a great opportunity for myself, and it's great to be in a position to give back to people. So it's great seeing regular people coming along. It's great seeing new people, experienced people, and the idea is just to it's great to be in a community. It's very important within not just property, but in business in general. And yeah, you need to be around like-minded people to help and support each other on the same journey.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So if you're ever in and around Cardiff and you haven't been to the Cardiff Pin, get yourself to the Cardiff Pin and go and say hello to Luke and say, I've come to the Cardiff Pin because I heard you on the Property Unleashed. And
Yeah,
that'll make your day, and it'll make my day as well. But no, that's great. So just touching on a few things, because obviously you've done quite a few different projects, from, you know, your standard buy to lets, you know, HMO, so to speak. You've got serviced accommodations, you've got commercial conversions. But what are some of the like biggest problems or pitfalls that you would say or recommend to people just to maybe keep an eye on, something that is kept happening maybe time and time again, or have you just had a freak problem that you just thought, oh my God, how are we going to get around this?
Yeah, so it could be tricky at times. So I think one of the biggest issues people have is when it comes to the refurbishment side of investment. Now, obviously, being this background, I understand it myself and the costings, how long things take, etc. But at the same time, it always takes longer and it always costs more. So when it comes to projects, whatever you think is going to cost, to make sure you have a contingency, because things do go wrong. And when they do go wrong, you've got to make sure you're ready and prepared. You can handle those. So I think it all comes down to surrounding yourself with the right people. Make sure you're getting the right knowledge from the right people as well. And I suppose going back to my first couple investments, I think my mistake was by doing the refurbishments myself, I was saving money. When in theory, yes, I was saving quite a lot of money because obviously there was no labor charged. But the issue is because I'm doing the work myself at the time. So, so going back to the very beginning of my investing journey, um, when I used to do the refurbs myself, I used to sleep in my investments. So as my investment area for HMOs are in Swansea, that's a 3-hour commute for me every day. So what I was doing is I'll travel down on the Monday morning and then I'll come home on a Friday evening. But the hours I will be working would be 7 in the morning to sometimes 11, 12 in the night. So it was very long days. Now, yes, I was saving money, but the issue is because I was spending all my time on one project, it didn't allow me time to do multiple projects at once. So going back, my biggest learning was I needed to step back a little bit to achieve more of my goals. So now I suppose going back to when I took my development on, that was my step to step off the tools to then have multiple projects ongoing at once rather than just like, let's just say one every, 8 to 12 months. So yeah, my biggest learning going back is step back a little bit, get more people in to do the work for you because you make money when you buy the property, I suppose, as long as you negotiate it at a cheap enough price. That's where the true money is made. And yeah, getting the professionals in to do the work for you.
No, I think that's great. I think we can, particularly when starting out, we can get so hung up on trying to do everything ourselves to save that little bit of money because, the money is everything. But like you say, if you actually, pay the relevant people and pay them properly as well, don't always go for the cheapest, that's for sure, but go for good professionals to go and do that for you. Like you say, you could have had 3 projects on the go, project manage them all to a certain point, couldn't you? But you couldn't because you didn't have the time to do so because you were just headlong just doing that one thing. So now that's great advice. That's great advice. So what's the future looking like for you then? What are your future aspirations?
Yeah, so the future always scares me. And if I'm honest,
Exciting.
it is exciting, but I don't like to think too far ahead.
Fair
So,
enough.
it's great to have your 3, 5, 7, 10-year goals. But personally, I don't like to think further than 5 years. So the last, I suppose, few years of being in property, it's been very busy. It's been very tough, very challenging. So I'm at a stage now where I'm looking to take a little bit of downtime. So as soon as we finish this development, I'm going to go away, do some traveling, um, explore the world, explore the cultures, and then I'm going to come back and progress again. That doesn't mean I'm going to completely stop in property, but although now I've built I suppose, my cash flow, I've got my HMOs, which are paying me income. I'm doing my development, which is paying me a profit. What I'm now doing is kind of giving back and offering a service where I can help people on their investment journey. And this is going to be specifically aimed for as like a consultancy, so helping them on the refurbishments, helping them deal with contractors, helping them get in the correct scope of works, and how to deal with builders. Dealing with builders, you got to deal with them in a specific way. If you be too detailed, you will scare them off, and they will probably overprice. So there is a certain way to deal with not just builders, contractors in general. So I want to help investors. I want to help them on viewings. I want to help them price up their refurbishments. I want to continue to help them on their ongoing projects as a support consultant, I suppose. So going forward, I will be offering a service. This is new. So if you are interested in something like this, reach out to myself and we can see how we can help each other. But going forward, as well as that, I will be focused more on development. So I'll be doing bigger and larger projects going forward. And who knows what the future holds? You'll have to follow and see what comes up, see what's going to happen.
No, it's good. It's good. Anywhere particular where you want to go first? Traveling?
So yeah, I will be traveling to Asia. So my plans is to travel Asia for a month, hopefully within the next month or two, depending on how things go. And I also like the idea of interrailing around Europe as well.
Very nice. Very nice indeed. And when you say you're going to be looking at more developments and things, what is is that going to be, commercial to residential, or is it going to be, whatever basically you find, or is there a specific strategy that you're looking for, maybe creating, commercial into flats, or you're looking at new builds or anything like that?
Yes, so it is mainly going to be commercial to residential conversions, because I suppose not just in the UK, but generally in Wales, there are lots and lots of empty commercial buildings which have got such huge potential to turn into residential. Just to give you an idea on ours, it was an old commercial building which was pretty much surrounded by residential buildings. So it was an absolute eyesore to see for the residents. So this was a perfect location to turn into residential. So going forward, it will be mainly commercial to residential conversions. But of course, if there's potential for new builds, then obviously I will be considering that going forward as well. The reason why we're currently doing new builds on our development at the moment, because the building that was on there needed to be demolished, which gave us the opportunity to do some new builds. I will be truthful, I've never done new builds before, but I'm looking forward to doing this one on our own development. Depending on how that goes, we will consider it going forward in the future as well. But yes, old, big commercial buildings, that's what excites me. That's what I know, that's what I'm good at. So going forward, it will definitely be that.
Well, I think that's great. I think a lot of people also always feel that they have to do something new. Always want to, a lot of people want to stretch themselves as well. But if you know something and it works really, really well, then just keep doing it until it can be boring, but boring is sometimes the norm, and that is the way to actually build up good wealth and good profits. And of course, if it allows you to go traveling for a couple of months every year, happy days, or even more at the end of the day. But that's great. That's brilliant. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Well, my friend, what I like to do on these is a little quick fire round. I say it's a quick fire round. I'm just going to ask you some questions because I'm always intrigued and interested in people's answers at the end of the day. So you all right with that?
Let's go for it.
Let's go for it. Okay, then. So what's the best advice you've been given?
Oh, what's the best advice I've been given? So there's a quote I always use in my presentations when I speak is, if you want something you never had, you have to do something you've never done. So this quote has stuck with me for a long time, is you got to do things that scare you. For me, it was doing business. That absolutely terrified me. So ever since my self-development journey, I've always done something to get myself outside my comfort zone. So being a host, I was not comfortable doing that at start, especially when the opportunity got brought to me. That's the last thing I wanted to do, but I still done it. And to this day, I don't regret it. I love hosting. I love giving back to people. And I also love presenting as well. I've been on a lot of network meetings, sharing my story and how I can help people. I love doing that. Public speaking used to absolutely terrify me. They say the two biggest fears are public speaking and death. At the time, death never used to scare me. Public speaking used to absolutely terrify me. Now it's the other way around. I love public speaking. I love giving back. So yeah, if you want something you never had, you have to do something you've never done. So do stuff that scares you. Do stuff that gets outside your comfort zone.
Exactly right. I couldn't agree more. Brilliant quote, brilliant saying. And I remember when we first met, you were chatting, we were all right, but even then you were a little bit shyer and everything. You were just seeing how things were going. So it's been great, really, to see how you've bloomed and you've come out of yourself, and we now see the true Luke in front of us, Luke the businessman at the end of the day. So it is always great to see. Okay, so if you had to have a corporate job, you couldn't work for yourself, what would you do? And it won't be a plasterer, will it?
God, that's one thing I've never thought of. So being where I am now, I would say I am unemployable. But going back, honestly, that's a very tricky question.
You can choose. You can do anything you want.
I could do everything I want.
Apart from work for yourself.
I'm a very hands-on person. So for me, sitting behind a desk and doing lots of screen work, that's not for me. So I love building stuff. So if it's anything building related, that's all me. So yeah, if corporate, honestly, I can't give an answer on that. I'm more of a hands-on person. I love building.
Fair enough. I like it. So if you could sit down and have dinner with anybody, dead or alive, who would you like to sit down and have dinner with? 3 people.
3 people. You know what? I'm probably going to get a lot of hate for this, but Donald Trump. I find him a very interesting guy.
He's your 3 people. He certainly is interesting, I'll tell you that.
He's an interesting guy, and he's an interesting business person. So he's one. One person that's helped me a lot on my journey is Simon Suchi. So I've actually sat down and had dinner with him, and he's been a massive help for me. So if I go back again and have another dinner, it would be Simon Suchi. And then the third person, who would be the third person? Oh, it would be yourself, Mark. I would go for yourself.
I tell you what, I'd enjoy that as well. Sat down there with you, Simon, and Donald Trump. That would be a hell of a well, we'd have a party, wouldn't we? There wouldn't be a dry drink in the house, or whatever the saying is. At the end of the day, we would certainly mop up there. But that's a good one. Do you have 3 top podcasts that you listen to?
Yes. So obviously, I'm going to count in yourself. Property Unleashed. Lately, I've been listening to the Diary of the CEO.
Yeah,
I find that a very interesting podcast. He's got some interesting guests that come along. So that's a common run I listen to. And apart from that, I don't really listen to a lot of podcasts. I do a lot of audiobooks. So an audiobook I really enjoy is... I'm trying to think of the name of it now. You put me on the spot. What's my favorite audiobook? It's got to go back to the... put me on the spot now. I swear this happens to me sometimes. My mind goes blank.
Well, the next question actually is, what's your top 3 books?
The top 3 books. So I don't really do much physical reading at the moment. It is mainly podcasts. But at the beginning of my journey, I suppose, my first ever book was Property Magic. That's, of course, won by Simon Suchi. It's the Think and Grow Rich. I thought that's... that was very great, especially starting off within business. And the third one is, come on, it'll come to me.
Have a look. Well, you're on your phone.
Right, I'm going to stick with 2.
You got 3. Everybody has 3.
Everyone has 3.
Gruffalo. You won't know what that is.
What's the investigation one? The retired investigator. It's
Oh, never split the difference. Oh,
that's one.
negotiating.
Never split the difference. That's the one. I thoroughly enjoyed that one, especially the negotiating part. So yeah, never split the distance. It's been a while since I read that one. You could tell that, but I will be going back and I will get the physical book back out and reread that one.
So on your audiobook, you obviously, have you just listened to Never Split the Difference?
No, I've actually read Never
Okay.
Split the Difference. I've probably listened to it as well on audiobook. So yeah, going back to my, I suppose, self-development journey, there was so much reading and listening I was doing to the point where I've clearly forgot it all.
It's there somewhere. It's there somewhere.
Sometimes it's just it takes so much in, and trying to think of it all again is it's a lot.
Yeah, I must admit, if you haven't listened to it, David Goggins, Can't Hurt Me, audiobook, because he does like a bit of a podcast between the chapters where he talks about what they're talking. It's really, really fascinating, really good. I mean, what the lad's been through and stuff, but really enjoyed that. I recently listened to it again, and I know he's got another one out now, but that's well worth a look.
Yeah, he's a very interesting guy.
Brilliant, brilliant. Well, thank you very much for joining me today, you fine fellow. If anybody wants to reach out to you, we put some stuff in the show notes and stuff like that. But is there a specific way that they can get hold of you if somebody does want to get hold of you?
Yeah, sure. So I'm active on Facebook and Instagram. So feel free to give me a follow, add me as a friend. If you want to book in a call, feel free to reach out to me on social media. Then more than happy to connect with anyone who's interested in my journey, how we can help each other going forward. So yeah, give me a follow, Luke Rowlands on either Instagram or Facebook.
Marvelous, marvelous. And if you have any problems getting hold of the lad, get hold of me and I'll point you in his general direction. Once again, my friend, it's fantastic to hear your story. It's fantastic to get the hints and tips and tricks that you've shared with us today. I hugely appreciate it. And I know the people that listen to the podcast, people that are watching this on YouTube will appreciate it as well. So once again, thank you for coming on. It's been great to have you.
Thanks for having me.
So all that leaves me basically to say to you fine people is make sure you know what it is that you want to do. You're passionate about what it is you want to do, because as Luke has touched on there, and I do all the time, property investing, whilst being rewarding, whilst being lucrative, is hard. It is hard work. It can run you down. You need to make sure that you put yourself in the right communities. You need to make sure you put yourself in the right mindset as well, because when times are hard, it's nice to be able to reach out to people who have maybe been there and done that, can sympathize with you, can put an arm around your shoulder, or just kick you up the backside and tell you to get on with it. But sometimes we just need those people around us. So make sure you are connecting with the right people. Have a vision, know what it is you want to do, have those goals, break those goals down into bite-sized chunks, get out there and make it happen. I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and I look forward to you joining me in the next episode very soon. Take care and bye for now.